Today we're going to be talking about consulting business websites.
Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast, and that's facts. Only I can make a change. Slowly take a step today. I will never be the same, cause that's what it takes.
Welcome to the podcast. My name's Russell Pearson. This is your Consulting Business Podcast, episode 16. And today we're going to be talking about consulting business websites, websites for your consulting business, for your consulting practice. And ideally what I want to be talking about today are the do's and don'ts, and actually what you need to start when it comes to having an online presence. And so, yes, I'm going to be talking about websites, but I'm really going to be talking about the online presence more than anything else. Now, you may have heard me on the record before of talking about not needing a website. Well, I will be touching on that as well, but I'll explaining what part of the website is going to be relevant and what's not, right? So, my history in this space is actually 26 years of building websites. So I came from a place of design into marketing, and it was through the 90s that was happening, which was exactly the same time as websites were really starting to become part of just about every business. So this is before Google, before the tech bubble burst, and we were building all sorts of different websites in all sorts of different weird and wonderful ways. And at the time, people were thinking that maybe it would be a bit of a fad. but as we've discovered, the internet in general has not become a fad. And while what a website is and what a website does has certainly changed over that time, there are some fundamentals that actually come into probably more marketing theory than anything else, engagement theory, influence, that I think are going to be relevant to today. So we'll talk about some of those things, and we'll talk about how you can get started. So there are a lot of individuals out there feeling like they need to be spending tens of thousands of dollars, if not just at least $5,000 or $10,000 in building a website to create a professional presence for their business. And a lot of these people are coming from a corporate role or from coming from an expertise position, and they're like, all right, well, to get started, I need to hang my shingle out. I need to say what it is that I'm going to do, and that via that way is the website. Now, there are two very distinct reasons to do a website when you're starting any consulting business. Number one is because it is going to form a function of the delivery of what you do in what you do. And so what I'm saying is that it needs to be an essential part of doing what you do. Now, most thought leaders, most consultants that I speak with are actually dealing with thought, right? They're not necessarily dealing with products. They're not necessarily dealing with delivery of some sort of collateral or some sort of thing, right? A thing. And so even if it's a digital thing, there tends to not really need that delivery mechanism via a website. Like you could send an email of stuff, you could put it on some Dropbox or a Google Drive or something like that for delivery of digital assets. Usually, you don't need to actually have a website to store any of those things, though people feel like they absolutely do. They need to create this sort of personalized space for these things to appear. So if you need to do that, absolutely fine. Makes sense. All right. The second reason is actually not what you think it's probably going to be, because most people think it's for marketing purposes. But the reality is that most websites get in the way of you doing successful marketing. Because number one, the biggest thing with websites in general is websites are a store. Right? They're a place, they're a presence. It could be an office, it could be a retail store, which means that you actually need people to find you, right? It needs an address, and the domain name is the address. But how do you get people to walk on past? Well, you do things like search engine optimization, which is get the website really geared so that it gets picked up by Google as a search. You can pay to make that happen. That's SEM, so search engine marketing. There are things that you can do to get your presence put on something like a search engine that way. The key really is, how do I get in front of my ideal prospects with this thing that I've got? So most people think that the website's a good way of doing that, but it's very difficult to actually get your search engine now in this very noisy market to actually get your search engine optimized so that you are the number 1, 2, or 3 in any space. And if you actually go and have a look at Google search, and I say Google, there are other search engines, but I say Google because Google is like got 90%, if not more, depending on what country you're in, of the control on search, right? Now, it's different in China. There's a few other Asian ones. But generally, in most Western parts of the world, that is definitely the case. And so getting to the top spots on Google, it's not easy because there's a lot of competition. Now, not only is it not easy, but the second thing is if you go and have a look at Google, you'll notice that the ads come first. People who pay to play come first, and then you'll probably get a local search after that. And then you've got to work out, what do I want people to be searching for? And it's not what you want them to be searching for, it's what are they actually searching for to actually find a business like mine. Okay, so there's all these hoops and things you need to jump through even after you've done the website to get it in front of people. Now, you might be able to just send the website to people, you can email it to people, you can on social media put a post up and get people to go to it. But it's a two-step activity. You've got to go, right, here's the website, then come to the website, discover how good the website is, and then ideally make an inquiry to come and work with me, or work for me, right? So the website's got 2 points. So how do I attract talent into the business, and how do I attract clients into the business, right? So a lot of people think it's for marketing, but in actual reality is most people have to do a website when they start because they haven't gone through any process to define who am I? Who am I and who is this business that I'm actually creating? And the website creation process is a really good process for you going through that process. You know, so you're defining who are we? Who are we for? Like, in other words, who are our clients? What are our principles? What do we say about ourselves? What do we say around here? All the little elements that we want to communicate become suddenly an important step that we need to do when we're creating a website. So the process of creating a website is a really useful one for you to get clarity on what it is you're trying to do. But you don't need to do that at all. And in fact, when it comes to consulting, especially management consulting, having a LinkedIn profile will actually do a lot of that work for you. So if you haven't got a LinkedIn profile, go there first. It's absolutely free. It's where most business people at least have a presence. And you can show up through their search automatically, and you can also post things on there so that your network will see it more often. Now, there are reasons why people don't see your posts on things like LinkedIn as often as you would like, but that's a subject for a whole nother podcast. But today, I just want to point out that you may want a website, but unless it's for fulfillment or it's to just go through the process of working out what it is that we do, I wouldn't start there. You know, the website in particular, just through its definition. So a website is an archive of pages. It's like there's usually a landing page, like a home page, an about page, a contact page, a services page. There's all these sort of traditional pages. Now, your website doesn't have to have traditional pages, but it will have a navigation. It will have a menu because it is, by definition, an archive of links or an archive of pages. So the problem with that menu is that it creates opportunities for you to leave a page. So let's say that someone lands on your website with all good intentions. They've found you on search, which means they intentionally put something into the search engine. They found your website, it came up. They went into the website, they go, this looks good. It's got the right language. It's talking to me. Yeah, right. I'm in the right place. I'm going to now click a link. I'll click the About link and I start reading about the consultant or the consultants and the consulting group, what they're into. I go, I'll click on the services. I start reading about the services. Somebody distracts me in the background. I have to leave the computer for a moment. I walk off. I start talking about them. I forget completely why I was here and I get back to the computer and I go on to something else. Right, I search onto something else, or I flip onto the next task that's important, and then I forget to come back, and then I go back to the search engine and I start the whole process again. That's what happens when you've got all these links everywhere. And so if you are going to do a website for the purpose of someone being able to connect with you, my suggestion is to create a landing page or a squeeze page that actually is a place that you send someone so that they get maybe a downloadable, or they get to contact and be in contact with you that will give them some form of benefit. Maybe it's a diagnostic, maybe it's a course, maybe it's a group, maybe it's whatever it is, right? So there's some form of benefit for them to give you their contact details. And it only has one thing they can do. So they arrive there, they might see an image, they see a title, they see a description about what this thing is. They don't see any other links. They only see one link, which is to click to download, enter your details, or leave, right? And so it stops distraction, which is the main issue for website problems. And what are website problems? Well, it's when someone lands on the page, gets distracted, and it means that usually like 1% or even 1% of 1% of people actually take an action when they land on your website. Now, the industry, and I'm talking about like global industry averages, I think 2.3% of people take an action on a website, but that's including really high quality e-commerce stores, and includes all the landing pages that I'm talking about, which means that a traditional website, the information brochure style website, is way down the bottom of the run and usually less than 1%. Definitely ways to improve that. I'll talk about some of those in just a moment. But my first point and my main point is that don't do a website until you need to do a website. Why do I need to do a website? Well, I want people at some point to be able to research a company of people, a group of people, rather than just an individual. So if you're a solo consultant, maybe you've got a VA or something like that, LinkedIn is absolutely fine because it's about you. The business is about you. The point of time to actually have a website which has a reason to research is usually when you, maybe there are a couple of others, or maybe you've got a team at this point, are starting to form an entity that is more than just yourself. All right? That's the reason to really start building a website for those research purposes, because at that point you do want people to be able to research you. Now, you may be thinking, well, if I don't have a website, people won't take me seriously. But funnily enough, because LinkedIn got into search over the last couple of years, if people put in your name, it's your LinkedIn profile that will more likely come up above anything else, unless you've spent a lot of money and a lot of time on your other web presences. All right, so let's say that we are going to build a website. Let's say that we've gone to the process now of, all right, we're no longer just a solo practice. We've got other people involved. What are the things that are important to have on a website? Well, number one, what are we? I've seen a lot of people try and be tricky and try and be trendy, which is the way that they describe themselves. And so people land on the page and they go, they might even talk to the values, passionate, enthusiastic, and growing, or something like that might be the tagline, with no description about what they do. And people will go, well, I don't know if this is the right place. And you might discover that it's supposed to be an accountant, right? and let's say it was a tax accountant. All you need to have is, yes, say that thing, but byline it with tax accountant. Ideally, when someone lands on your website, they need to get what they expect. You should look like the thing that they're expecting to get. Now, if you don't, then they will get confused, and a confused buyer never buys. A confused mind never buys, and so they will tend to leave and they go on and look at the next site and the next site and the next site after that, right? So being very clear about who you are and what you do is very important on that first page. Now, I know that there's just put this to the side, right? I worked in branding for over 20 years. Like it's a thing that I really love, and I taught on it. Like I taught this at university. I have a very deep knowledge of branding, and what I've discovered over the years is branding is great. There's all sorts of reasons to be controlling and doing proactive, effective branding activities. It's such a big area, but it's not to confuse the buyer, right? So it's not to confuse people that come to your website to go, okay, I can get the essence of what these people are, but I've got no idea if I'm in the right place. All right, so you don't confuse people when they land on your website, number one. Another one that's worth noting is that people have, let me see if I can bring this up here because this is sort of relevant. One of the things that people have is these different preferences on the way they like to operate. And I wanted to touch on this. So, yeah, the thing is called a primary interest filter. There'll be certain reasons why they come to your website, certain reasons why they come to want to work with you. Now, there are 5, and they will relate to all sorts of different things that you have out there as far as different types of businesses. In consulting, there tend to be like 1, 2, or 3 max. But let me touch on all 5, right? So, are you selling a place? Is the thing you're offering a place? Now, obviously, that's something like destination places, holiday resorts, things like that. But is there a place where you do business? What's the activity that you do business? Do they come here for the activity? Are you a boat ride? Are you taking people on boat rides? That's an activity, right? So, are you about the people? So, are they coming to see a celebrity? Are they coming to work with maybe a music teacher, right? But that's really more about the activity of learning music. Is there a thing they're coming to get? And that's most e-commerce websites that are selling a thing. Are they coming for what's the one I saw sold the other day? A massage gun. Yeah, right? So are they coming for the thing that you offer? Or, finally, are they coming for the information that you offer? And so for most consultants, trainers, specialist advisors, there will be 2 aspects of it. Usually they're wanting information. Usually there is secret and mysterious information that they are lacking. They don't know how to do a thing, or they don't know where to go, or they don't know what to do next. And so usually it's about information. So if you've got a consulting-based website, they need to feel like they've arrived in a place where they're going to get the information. Now, that doesn't mean that you give it to them on the first page. You need to understand that there is a process to qualifying and bring someone into your world in a way that they feel served, and that they actually feel like you've diagnosed the challenges that they've got, rather than just tried to sell them something. And sometimes it's actually really destructive to just tell somebody how to do something until they're ready for it. So there is a process of consulting. There is a process of advice. There is a process of training and education, right? But when it comes to a consulting website, they need to feel like this is a place that they're going to get information. Now, you might be a celebrity in your space. You might be a speaker on the circuit and all sorts of things. If they are coming for your celebrity just to be around you as a celebrity, then yes, you need to get a sense of that too. But for most consulting businesses, it'll be to get this mysterious and mystical information that you have as a wizard, right? That you can pull from behind your back and actually deliver. They need to get a sense of that. But really good quality, let's take a restaurant, for instance, will have all of these things. They'll have a beautiful place. Some people want to come because of the ambiance. They want to come because they really like attending this place. It could be a cool place, right? It could be a great place to come to. It's a popular place, right? Destination. So the restaurant will place certain activities. Maybe there's like the way that food is delivered, or the way that food is eaten there is a little bit different. There'll be certain people, and people can put you off or turn you on. So the concept of, like, let's say that the staff, if people are really important to you, if there's unfriendly staff in that cafe or that restaurant, you could, like, they might have the best food in the world, or they might have the best ambiance in the world, but you're not going to stay there, because for you, people was important. So everyone has their preferences, everyone has their primary interest filters. But the best quality businesses will touch on all of them. So people was the next one. Things, there will be certain things that you come there for. So the food, right? In that restaurant example, there'll be particular, like, signature dishes that they have, or that sort of thing. Or there'll be information. How do you learn about what you're eating? How do you discover more about the history of the cuisine, or the place, or the presence, the people? How do you get information? So if you can touch on all 5 of those primary interest filters, then you really get a good sense of touching on every person's primary interest when they come into a buying situation. Now, there's all sorts of other influence triggers. There's persuasion, and there are all sorts of principles of persuasion, and we'll talk about them on a different podcast. But right now, I want to be talking about the website, which is, again, as a place to visit. So it's kind of like your shop front. If you no longer have an office, if you no longer have a storefront or a shop front, it becomes the shop front. But really clearly, I want you to understand that you've got a shop front with no one walking past it. When you start, no one is walking past it. And so if you want it to work quickly, you either need to invest a lot into the getting it out there to where people are, right? Or what I recommend is actually taking a different approach and understanding that if I just have a LinkedIn presence, that's a high quality looking LinkedIn presence, and I'm going to where they are, right? So whether that be I'm networking in the right circles, I'm reaching out to them in the right spaces, I'm becoming part of committees and groups and all these different places where my ideal client is, right? Then you actually don't need a website at all. Many people think that they need a website just the way they think they need a business card. They think they need a brochure to go with them. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to confidence. And for most consultants, especially when they're starting out, especially when they're starting out, whenever they make a change to something, they could be going into a new space, a new sector, a new industry, just having new offering, right? There is a step before they get confidence, which is really going, what is it that I'm actually providing? Who am I in providing this? And really, at the end of the day, there's a bit of an identity crisis. And so most people will opt to do a website because it takes them through an identity building process, right? So you don't need that. You could just go to LinkedIn. You can do the same sort of thing. You're actually prompted to walk through a process that actually says, who are you? What are you about? What do you say you are? Selecting photos and things. But if you are going to go to the website because you have reasons to build a website, then definitely make sure that when people arrive on the website, it makes sense, right? They're in the right place. You touch on those primary interest filters. We touch on the people, the place, the activities, the things that they're going to get, the information that ideally they're going to get. And we don't want to give it all to them at once, but they need to get a sense that it's all here. And at the end of the day, that you want to shorten the time or the ability for them to get in contact with you. Actually, I'm going to retract that. Sometimes you want to shorten it, right? Sometimes you want to extend it, because depending on what it is that you offer and depending on how you actually want to have an engagement, sometimes you want to make it a little harder for people to get in touch with you. So I'm going to retract that speed to engagement, and I'm actually going to say you want it to be effective. You want to be the most effective engagement that you can. And so as you're building out, whether it's your website or your business process or your business development process, understanding what steps are necessary and what steps are not. And for most consulting business, the website is not in those early stages, but certainly has a place as you're building more of a business than an individual consulting practice. My name is Russell Pearson. If you haven't already, I'd love you to subscribe to this video, or if you're listening to this as a podcast, definitely subscribe to the podcast, because these episodes go live every single week. My editor, Alfred, g'day Alfred, I know you're watching this, is editing these videos, and he does a fantastic job. Feel free to say into the comments, hey Alfred, how you going? A little shout out for Alfred. For those who don't know, businessconsultingpodcast.com is a place that you can actually go and get some more resources around what we offer here at Your Consulting Business Podcast. So you can do that. You can also go to the Future Proof Business Group on Facebook. There are some great resources there. But the main thing is make sure you subscribe to wherever you're actually hearing or watching this episode, so that I can actually get more stuff to your viewing face or your listening ears over the coming weeks, months, and who knows, maybe years. Until next time, my name is Russell Pearson. Stay passionate, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us on Your Consulting Business Podcast. Make sure to click the subscribe button for future updates, and also make sure to go to consultingbusinesspodcast.com for goodies made especially for you by yours truly. I will see you on the site.